history matters. And it doesn't mean history always repeats itself, but it matters. And the NBA's history is really clear. If you got like a couple great players and a good enough coach, they beat the team of depth. That's just the way it works. There have been some 1976 Seattle Sonics, the Dallas Mavericks, the Detroit Pistons years ago, like 15 years ago with Rip Hamilton, but generally the Stars win. I like the Lakers to beat Miami in 5 games. It starts tonight. I think they're going to roll. I do think Miami will shoot their way from three-point land to a win in the series, potentially 2, but I like the Lakers. One of the things I always do with football, basketball, I give you a top 10. Who are the 10 best players? And this matters a lot in the NBA. When I look at the Lakers and I look at the Miami Heat and I write down their top players, the 2 best players in this series are both Lakers. LeBron James is 1. And then Anthony Davis is number 2. Then after that, it's a bunch of Miami Heat players. Jimmy Butler would be 3. Bam Adebayo would be 4. Goran Dragic would be 5. Tyler Hero would be 6. Then it gets really, inches, not feet. I'll go Rondo, KCP, Kuzma. Number 10, I'll put Andre Iguodala of Miami because he's been in this game so many times. I think his experience will be really vital. By the way, that has been the Lakers story for the entire bubble as they've blown through it. Blown through Portland, blown through Houston, and blown through Denver. They have the 2 best players in every series, and then 3 through 7 or 8, it's the other guys, and then maybe a Laker or 2 at the end. That's actually what's always won for the Lakers. Whether it was Kareem and Shaq, and then everybody else had like 3 through 6. Shaq and Kobe. Everybody else had 3 through 7. That's NBA history. That formula's worked for the Lakers this year. Number 1 seed in the West, blown through the playoffs. 2 stars every single night. They are clearly the 2 best players for the Lakers on the floor, and they win. That's very Shaq and Kobe. Miami had 5 different guys lead them in scoring in the playoffs. That's very much the Pistons. But if you look at Miami's history, even they've done it the Laker way. Shaq, Wade, Gary Payton. Bosh, Wade, LeBron. So what you're asking Miami to do is what they've never really done. The Pistons way, the Sonics way, that Mavericks with Dirk and J.J. Barea. We know what wins in the NBA. Now, it is the bubble. The bubble's been quirky. The bubble's been weird. Young players have done very well in the bubble because there are no toxic road crowds. They play basketball. They play video games. They hang out. It feels like a big AAU tournament. And of all the teams that have some young guys mixed with old guys, Miami's been the best. Dragic's been around a while. Jimmy Butler's been around a while. Andre Iguodala's been around a while, surrounding young stars like Bam and Tyler Hero. But I will take the Lakers because I will take LeBron. I have not seen him. This is the one old team that got a break with the bubble. Why? Anthony Davis has a history of getting hurt. He got his body totally healthy for 4 months. Anthony Davis loved that 4 months off because he's had nicks and bruises and cuts and injury. Oh, he got 4 months off to get healthy. Healthiest Anthony Davis has ever been in this bubble. And LeBron is in his 17th year. He could have used 4 months off to hang out with his family in his pool in Brentwood and get... So this is the one old team that actually the 2 stars benefited greatly from time off. And I also think not only is LeBron the most energized I've seen him, I swear to God, in about 5 years, listen to him, he's the most focused I've heard him perhaps ever.
I'm here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to compete for a championship. And that was my mindset once I entered the bubble, once I entered the quarantine process the first 2 days. That's just been my mindset. Throughout these, I don't even know how many days it is. How many days it is, it feels like 5 years. So it really doesn't matter. But I've been as locked in as I've ever been in my career.
The one old team that has flourished in the bubble actually got 2 breaks. They're called LeBron and AD. The brittle player, healthiest he's ever been going into the playoffs, and the 17-year star needed a little rest and got it. I'll take the Lakers in 5. When you have power in life and make most of the decisions, you often dump people and rarely get dumped. Pat Riley didn't like it when LeBron dumped him, and Dan Gilbert the first time in Cleveland didn't like it when LeBron dumped him. But when you are the best player in the world like LeBron James, You get to do the dumping, not the other people. LeBron has shown over the course of his career the ability, and it's probably innate, to make really good decisions. I don't think he was the best player his first 3 or 4 years in the league, maybe not until year 5 or 6. Maybe you could argue that. He hasn't always had the best teammates or the best luck. But he has had the ability to make really good decisions. I've said this for years. When Carmelo Anthony was in Denver, he had a promising career. When he forced a trade to New York, he forced it. He didn't have the self-awareness to go, I'll just play the rest of my contract out. But the Knicks had to give up so many pieces to get him that he entered a bad team. LeBron has made 3 decisions in his career to leave, and they were all absolutely right. He was in Cleveland. They won games. But LeBron looked around the league and said, you can't win without a multitude of stars, and nobody wants to play here, and we're too good to get one in the draft. So LeBron went to Miami, joined stars, and won. And then the Heat started getting really old. Dwayne Wade was struggling to play well back-to-back, and 9 guys on the Heat roster were in their 10th season or longer. They were getting old, and they didn't have any young emerging stars. And then, after going to Cleveland and winning with Kyrie, he went flat earth theory and scorched earth and left, and LeBron looked around and said, well, we're still too good with me to get a good draft pick, and nobody wants to come here as a free agent. I'm leaving. And then he went to Miami, which is a huge brand. It's been an absolute smashing home run for him for business. In fact, he just signed another mega $1 million deal yesterday with NBC. And LeBron believed, I will be able to eventually lure a free agent out here, somebody, or we've got picks and young players we can move. He was right. LeBron, I always said, talent's his greatest gift. Durability is perhaps the most amazing thing. But what is underrated in his career is the ability to know when to exit. It has been perfect. It was just the right time to exit. Dwayne Wade had about 3 really great years left. By the last year, Dwayne was kind of falling apart. He could see it. He knew it. Then he brought a young Bosch in. And then Kyrie flakes out. He goes and says, I still don't think I have a good owner. He goes to a dysfunctional brand in L.A. that he felt he could lure somebody or trade for somebody. And by the way, who represented Anthony Davis? LeBron's buddy, Rich Paul. So he knew they could get him over. So a lot of times you can be great, Carmelo Anthony, Blake Griffin. I mean, you can fall into the right spot. But do you have the ability, self-awareness, and the innate understanding of when to leave, when to enter, when to say bye, when to say hello, decision-making? LeBron has been a great decision-making. He can feel the temperature in the room before anybody else does. And sometimes people like Pat Riley and owners of teams are mad because that's due to they've been dumpers forever and somebody dumped them and they don't like it.
What were you saying?
Okay, so the history of the league, even in Miami, we know the Lakers have always done it with stars, not role players. But even in Miami, it's been with stars when they've won. I like the Lakers in 5. I think it looked a lot like Denver, that it could be kind of a steamroll effect where you really never feel after game 1, you really feel like the Lakers are clearly the better team. Your thoughts?
I agree with you almost wholeheartedly, with the only tweak being I think the Lakers might lose tonight. The Heat have to win tonight to have any shot in the series. Joy Taylor's beloved Miami Heat, who are a great story and a very good team, they know they have to, if they're going to win a championship, they have to do it within 6 games. Because if they're playing a Game 7 against LeBron, that's a loss. No one has done that, won in that scenario since George W. Bush was president. So that's not going to happen. For them to win in 6, they got to win Game 1. The Lakers, on the other hand, lost in Game 1 against Portland. There was a very, very smart, relatively good-looking radio television host who I think picked Portland to win the series after that. Can't remember who that is. They lost Game 1 against Houston. They didn't lose again that series. So the Lakers can lose tonight and still win the series. I understand folks want to bring up the 04 Pistons when a great collection beat, a great top 2 talent. But the reason everyone has to bring up the 04 Pistons is because how rare that is, and the difference between the 2004 Lakers and the 2020 Lakers is the 2004 Lakers hated each other, and this team seems to really, really love each other. And oh yeah, by the way, they've got a guy who hasn't lost a playoff series where he's been the favorite since 2011. Wow. So I'll go with him. I also agree with you. I think it's Lakers in 5.
By the way, Clippers moved off Doc Rivers. I said this, when Doc, I think in the NFL you have to have a great quarterback, or even Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, and Belichick get fired. You don't win titles without it. In the NBA, you need a clutch number 2. A lot of people have great stars in this league. But when Phil had Kobe as a 2 to Shaq, or Pippen as a 2 to MJ, or Gasol a 2 to Kobe, and they were reliable, well, they won titles. When Doc had a reliable 2 in Paul Pierce and a hell of a 3 in Ray Allen, and then he won. When he had Blake Griffin and Paul George as his 2, he didn't win. This, to me, is a Paul George issue more than a Doc Rivers issue. Your thoughts?
So a couple things. One is, you're right about the history there, but you shouldn't need a great number 2 to, in 7 years with the Clippers, make a single conference finals. Like, here's a stat that I'm going to tell you, Colin. You're not going to believe me, but I promise it's true. Frank Vogel has won as many playoff series with the Lakers as Doc Rivers won with the Clippers. That's a true story right there, as amazing as that sounds. And Frank Vogel's been there 1 year. With that said, yes, this meltdown is more on the players than the coach, because people can say, oh, it's the bubble, it was lack of continuity. Y'all were up 19 in Game 5 and couldn't close, up 16 in Game 6 and couldn't close, and then up a dozen in Game 7 and fell apart. I never believed this team could win the title. But while I picked the Nuggets to beat them, they clearly could have beaten the Nuggets and would have beaten the Nuggets if just either Paul George or Kawhi seized the moment. But if you want to blame Paul George, it's fair, and I will add something to it, Colin. I wonder if Paul George's commentary after the series of "we never viewed this as championship or bust," how do you think that sat with Steve Ballmer? And I think it's totally in place. Steve Ballmer said, wait, what? My message was not getting communicated then, because I didn't buy 20 million backpacks to distribute to the children of Los Angeles to try to turn them into Clippers fans so we could lose in round 2. It absolutely was championship or bust to the owner. And so when the second best player says it wasn't, I wonder how much that hurt Doc. And I also wonder how much Ballmer was waiting to see. Well, let's see how the Nuggets do against the Lakers. Like, if the Nuggets had beaten the Lakers, maybe Doc still has his job. Ryan Hollins made that point. I think it's a good one. But when the Lakers dispatch of them easily, it's harder to keep Doc.